What's up, everybody? Paul Hickey here with NoOffSeason.com. You know the rock music. This is the Football Card Strategy Show, episode 7. I'm here. Thank God I'm here with my main man, Andy Cason. And the reason I say thank God is we all know about Hurricane Ian hitting Florida, and thoughts and prayers to everyone affected by the hurricane. Luckily, Andy was, as far as I know, not really affected, according to his report. He got through the night. He and his family are safe and sound, and he actually has power, internet, water, all the essentials. And he's here joining us on the Football Card Strategy Show, episode 7, heading into week 4 of the NFL season. Andy, good to see you, my man.
Yeah, Paul, really good to see you as well. Yeah, thoughts and prayers out to all the other Floridians affected from Hurricane Ian. So lucky here in Tampa that we just kind of dodged him, and we definitely got a lot of bans and intermittent power issues. But I mean, man, we're good to go right now, and very very happy to be here back talking football, man. Heading into week 4. After 3 really juicy weeks, I'm looking forward to another good one here and digging into some football and football card content with you, Paul.
Yeah, it's the best time of the year, I think. I mean, I'm a fan of all sports, as you know, but I think this is the best time of the year with the NFL season. Things are happening. So let's get into it. Looks like Brady and the Bucks moved their practices over to Miami. Hopefully we're going to have a full slate of NFL football this week as well. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention and have a little bit of a discussion on, and feel free to let us know in the comments what you think of this. Football, we've talked a lot about this, and Carter Bryant, who you do a Football Card Quest podcast with, and you're everything you've got going on at Football Card Quest on YouTube and patreon.com/footballcards. Everybody should go check you out there. But you and Carter and I had a discussion on your show in the NFL offseason, and I made a statement that I think football cards are the riskiest of all cards. And I think the reason why we dug into that a little bit on your show is that during the season, especially at the beginning of the season, the first few weeks, things are super volatile, right? And so you are pretty outspoken about when to buy and when to sell. And you recommend everybody sell basically in August, like before the season really kicks off officially. And I think we can look at, obviously injuries are a huge reason to that. Performance, NFL has a lot of parity, so there's a lot of teams that sort of go the opposite way from where they were the year before. We'll talk about that in a second, but first let's talk about the injuries, because that's just a factor that I think everybody kind of forgets about. How injuries happen in football far more frequently than any other sport, and that was the reason I gave when I was on your show. And so we've seen it with Trey Lance, and now we're seeing it with Mac Jones, who we know he's day by day. Thank you, Bill Belichick, for the 12 mentions in one press conference of day by day. But even though he's day by day, this graphic that I'm showing on my screen right now from Slab Stocks is using data from Card Ladder, and it basically validates what I've got in my NoOffSeason.com sports card investment report, which I just updated today, the data for Mac Jones. He's down 76% since the end of June. Like he's, this Silver Prism PSA 10 specifically, it's not an autograph, it's just a Silver Prism PSA 10, was selling for over $1,000 at the end of June. And now it's selling it's down $838. So it's selling for just over $200. It's down 76%. So this is the kind of stuff that you're talking about, right? When you're talking about, when I'm saying football is super risky, what I mean is injuries to key players. And when you and Carter talk about selling in August, is this the kind of stuff you guys are talking about? Tell me what you think of, this whole concept now that we're 3 weeks into the NFL season. We've got Trey Lance, Mac Jones. His football card owners are kind of struggling a little bit right now.
Yeah, definitely are. This is a lot of the volatility I talk about, because if you're right, then you're really right and you're making really good profits, right? But if you're wrong, then or your guy got hurt, now all of a sudden you're down and out. And like I talked about, selling football cards being more difficult than buying. I mean, selling any type of sports cards is more difficult than buying. And so that's why I'm always a big advocate of having those cards listed. Like, every card's got its price, especially as an investor, or if you consider yourself a flipper or dealer, whatever you want to call yourself. Like, every card has to have its price, and every card should be like available for purchase, so somebody can have the opportunity to make an offer. And you never know when someone's in a position to want to buy that player because of one reason or another. And before the season, everybody's at a even playing field. Everybody's at a clean slate, 0-0. Everybody's got that possibility of going 3-0 or getting off the blocks hot and being a front runner for MVP and having some good stats. And I talked about Mac Jones as one of my biggest selling opportunities. I mean, they lost Josh McDaniels in the offseason. They bring in Matt Patricia to it's like Bill Belichick's buddy there, calling offensive plays. They're playing slow. Their protection rate is not great. Mac Jones, yep, now he's hurt and probably definitely going to miss at least a few weeks with a severe high ankle sprain. But even before that, like, their pace of play wasn't good. He's only had 2 passing touchdowns, so we know they wanted to run the ball a lot. I mean, he's got a below average number of pass attempts, and then you look at like his accuracy in terms of it's like middle of the pack, so there's nothing there to really help him stand out. I talked about his Mac Jones values being closely tied to the win-loss record of the Patriots. And of course, they've struggled just like we thought they would, and they're 1-2 and they have a difficult schedule. And so, yeah, as a result, his cards have gone down a lot. And Trey Lance being done for the season. See, this is where I get kind of excited in a sense, only because I bought some Trey Lance already. And if you bought some Trey Lance already, then it makes sense now to buy some more in the coming weeks, because you can take your average per card investment price down. So I bought an Optic Holo at $70. That card's already down to $30, Paul. So if I buy another one at $30, now all of a sudden I own 2 of them for $100. That's $50 a piece. And so my plan is to buy 3 or 4 more of those. Maybe I can get those in the $20 range now. And now all of a sudden I've got, let's say 8 Optic Holos at $25 a piece. And now I can sell those for $50 heading into next season, because we still have such a small sample size. And we know the ceiling is still so large. We've already seen Jimmy Garoppolo totally fail on primetime football. So we know that he's not like a long-term answer. Like, he's taken them to the playoffs and the Super Bowl before. Yeah, sure. But he relies so much on everybody else around that team, whereas Trey Lance has the ability, and also, unlike Mac Jones, to use his legs, to use his arm to really push the ball down the field and generate big highlights. And there's still such a small sample size, Paul, that people are going to get excited about this kid once again next year. So that's one of those situations where if you bought already, then you can buy some more and bring that average per card price down and actually make a profit, even selling them less than what you initially bought into heading into next season. But ultimately, it's like I always advocate trying to sell on hype when you can. Take the profits, don't get greedy, and roll that into something new, fresh, and so you can keep the wheel turning.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like what you said about Trey Lance, because I think we need to help everybody who owns Trey Lance have a strategy. And so everybody rewind it back, listen to what Andy said, rewind it back like 3 times and listen to what Andy said, because he's talking about this investing principle that if you still believe in something for the long term, even if the stock price, quote unquote, has gone down, you should still buy in, because now you have the opportunity to buy something at a fraction of the price that you did before. And it's the same product that you still believe in. And so if you believe that Trey Lance, the profile of top 5 overall pick, to a good team, to a winning franchise, not to a bottom 5 franchise, young, electric, exciting, raw, still going to get a chance because he's got that draft capital and the high investment that the team made. You've got a great opportunity to buy in, and marketmoversapp.com. If you want to get your first month for only $1, if you're not already a member there, use the promo code NOOFFSEASON. And I'm just showing on my screen here all the opportunities to go buy Trey Lance cards that are down significantly. We know he's down, so we know it's risky to buy in. There could potentially be a better time to buy in, maybe when there's less hype just overall around football in the NFL, which typically happens, between weeks 10 and week 13. That kind of window could be a better opportunity to buy Trey Lance. But the example of Mac Jones to me speaks to one thing that I often say, which is the NFL is the best soap opera in the world, possibly in the history of the world. And just the fact that things change on a dime, things change so quickly. Now you've got this chatter on the internet about former Patriots players or whatever saying that Mac Jones could be replaced by Brian Hoyer or by somebody else, maybe a draft pick next year. Yeah, I mean, things change real fast. So, but I would encourage all Mac Jones owners. He was a sell on nooffseason.com in his profile. If you're a premium member, you know that he was a sell all the way up until very recently. I just put him down as a hold. My advice to Mac Jones owners is you just got to hold the guy. Even to everybody, hold your position overall on Mac Jones. Don't buy in necessarily, but don't sell either, because this guy could be back sooner rather than later. You never know with Bill Belichick. And he could be managing games where the Patriots start winning, and then there's an opportunity to sell him then. And I would sell him then. Then I would learn from the fact that I held Mac Jones that long, and I would sell him then. So Andy, great advice to Trey Lance owners. Hopefully everybody is following us so far. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll get back to you. What other advice do you have are you seeing opportunities for people that may be holding the cards or looking to buy the cards from some of the key players of the teams who have started off a little bit disappointing so far this NFL season?
Yeah, so I think you could do the same thing, right? You look at the Chargers and the Bengals. It's so interesting what's happened this year because, going back to 2020, Justin Herbert and when he broke onto the scene, and Joe Burrow, after going to the Super Bowl last year, have been so hot all off season. And they both have gotten off to 1-2 starts, whereas Jalen Hurts and Tua have stolen all the limelight. They're at the top of the league. They're front runners right now.
Things totally reversed in a matter of weeks,
reversed, right? 3-0. Justin Herbert's even dealing with the cracked rib cartilage that was clearly in pain again last week. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but that was more so a product of just the Jaguars playing really good. And we can talk about Trevor Lawrence here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you're happy. You have a nice little Trevor Lawrence cachet over there. And so his values are definitely going up because of what they're doing. But right now you look at Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow 1-2, and the Bengals play the Dolphins tonight, Thursday Night Football. So just like you're saying, the NFL soap opera continues. Now you have Tua on a short week after the big, story about his potential concussion or back spasms or whatever they're calling it there. Creating
he
some
fell over on the field. Oh my God, that was crazy.
Yeah, ankle, back. Clearly, we know it was a concussion, and they found a way to get him back into try and get that win. And he was able to connect with Jalen Waddle to do what they needed to do to get that win. And so now they're playing Thursday Night Football. My personal prediction is the Bengals are actually going to win tonight. You have the Dolphins coming off this short week, and they put a lot on the line. Man. Their defense, I know, has got to be a little gassed. And I think the Bengals actually win this game. Actually, the Bengals started off really rocky. I think that was a byproduct of a lot of offensive line chemistry. Joe Burrow getting used to the game flow of the NFL again and all this, because obviously he missed a couple months in the training camp process due to the appendicitis and stuff. So Justin Herbert's affected by the cracked rib cartilage. So those are two guys that I've seen. I mean, I'm looking at their chart over the past, 4 or 5 months. It's down, man. And I'm looking at Jalen Hurts and Tua's chart almost intersecting on their base Prism PSA 10 with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. And I think you can, obviously, of course, right, there's a potential. So it could keep going down if they keep losing and keep turning the ball over and stuff. But there's a potential right now to buy Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert on this dip for those to go back up. And they're prime candidate guys based on how good their defenses are and the whole supporting cast, all the skill position guys, for them to make that late season push and then go into the playoffs and make a run at it, So those guys are prime candidates to buy a dip into those. And, I mean, it's hard to believe that the Raiders are 0-3. All right. We've talked about Derek Carr, the whole Devontae Adams thing. You've got a variety of issues there between chemistry, play calling. I'm not exactly sure if they know 100% like what their strategy is to win. Also, the losses that they have all been very close. So, they lost a big lead to Arizona. They lost a very close game to Tennessee. So it's like, they're another team and they just have so many struggles on defense, whereas the Bengals defense and the Chargers defense is a lot better. So from a holistic perspective, they've got a lot better chances to make it further down the stretch. And those guys, I'd feel a lot better about buying into a dip on them than Carr and Adams, who could actually dip more here in the next month. Like you said, I think the bottom for Trey Lance, Mac Jones, investors and stuff like that could be probably in the next month, like another month. They'll probably get even lower. Okay,
cool. Well, good morning to Oh My Shoes. Glad to see you as well. He's saying glad to see Football Card Quest HQ isn't underwater. Absolutely. We're glad Andy's and his family are safe. Oh My Shoes, let us know if you have any questions, and anybody else watching, jump in and we'll answer them live right here. And if you don't catch us during the live broadcast, comment and we'll get right back to you guys. We're all about this. We're doing this stuff 24/7, basically. I know Andy is with the football cards. So, all right, let's take a quick look at nooffseason.com updated football card rankings. I still have Tom Brady number 1. We can talk about that. Lamar at number 2. Lamar's been a staple at number 2 for a long time now. Mahomes, I've been steadfast with him at number 3. I still think Herbert, to your point a minute ago, is a good, he's a good solid number 4. Russell Wilson, I don't know if you've got a comment on him. So they're 2-1, but it's a weird 2-1, right? No one's running away with the AFC West right now. You've got, the Chiefs coming off a loss. You've got the Broncos coming off kind of a weird win. So Josh Allen, number 6, he lost too. We can talk about why he's number 6 if you guys want to talk about that. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, Justin Fields, Jamar Chase, Tua, Mac, and Derek Carr. I think those are the 15, the top 15. We've talked about some of these guys so far. I think that a good guy to talk about next, you brought him up a second ago, is Trevor Lawrence. And then we can talk about some of these other guys if you want. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence to me was somebody that we talked about it this offseason. You and I have agreed on him ever since we met each other, right? I mean, our take on him has always been, look, he's underperformed. He had his sample size up until literally, like, actually this season, and you could even argue week 3, like this past week, was just that he was underperforming, but that it was very natural. There was always a reason why he was underperforming. It always made sense to you and I. But then it was like, all this guy has to do really is like win a couple games and like maybe have a game or two where he doesn't turn the ball over, and he doesn't really have to put up amazing stats. And all of a sudden everyone's going to want to buy this guy. And so I think that you're seeing the beginning of that with Trevor Lawrence. The thing I like about it is that week 3 was not a 500-yard, 5-touchdown performance. It was just 260 some yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a win. And so what I like about it is he's not spiking huge. he's just naturally progressing, and the market for him is just naturally growing. And I think that to me, that's an example of a guy that you would still want to buy into. I wouldn't have blamed you if you would have sold in August like everybody else, because he could have been the Mac Jones or Trey Lance. So now if you sold him, I still think you're in good shape, because you probably made money on the hype of August, and he's still not totally unattainable. And you should be able to buy back in on him. But I guess whether or not you own him, Andy, how do you see Trevor Lawrence as a football card investment heading into week 4?
Yeah, so Trevor Lawrence, because the biggest storyline there for Jacksonville is how good their offensive line has played, which has kind of afforded him that time to kind of, develop as a passer. The pace of play isn't like incredible, but it's also not bottom of the league. He's throwing the ball at a decent rate. His clean pocket completion percentage through 3 weeks, almost 75%. So that's top 10 right now. He's, doing a little bit better even than Mahomes in that category. Where he's kind of struggled is under pressure. And so with that offensive line giving him more time, I mean, he's doing better. They're also setting up a better play action pass. James Robinson has bounced back really nicely from the Achilles, and he's doing great. So overall, Trevor Lawrence is playing very solid. They're one of the teams in the AFC South is 2-1, and now Vegas even has some lines where you could bet for the Jaguars to potentially win the AFC South division. It's kind of wide open after the Colts, struggled out of the gates, but they did manage to beat the Chiefs this past week, surprisingly. So we know the Chiefs are still human. The Colts are kind of bounced back into it, and it's still so early. So I really have to look at the Jaguars' upcoming schedule and try and forecast who I think, because right now Trevor Lawrence is based Donruss PSA 10 about $85 trend versus Jalen Hurts, who's got a trend on his PSA 10 based Donruss about 75. So they're really neck and neck. But I could see the Jags winning a lot more games here, and it's tough for me to buy into Trevor Lawrence because if I am more of his base stuff is in my price range, so I would be looking for PSA 10 base optic and base Donruss rated rookie, maybe the base prism, stuff like that. And I definitely have seen a pretty significant spike in his more rare autograph rookie ticket auto stuff going back up now to $1,000 from where they were if you would have bought in after the week 1 loss into Trevor Lawrence. Those are $500 cards. So there's definitely been first and foremost a value appreciation, a value spike in those cards. And but these more common cards, especially in the high grades, will kind of follow behind them, especially if they continue to win, man. They what's interesting, once again, I put Trevor Lawrence against Jalen Hurts. They're playing each other this weekend. So
love that. That's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, man, it's so exciting because the Eagles arguably have one of the best defenses all around, just at all levels in the league. And so that's definitely helped. They've also had one of the best offenses, and Jalen Hurts has very much taken a year 3 leap like Josh Allen in terms of passing accuracy. And ultimately, he's my pivot play to Trevor Lawrence, only because, I think the Eagles definitely have a larger fan base, right? They have a larger fan base, so there's more potential collectors there. And you just look at the overall team of the Eagles, very, very good. I feel like they're a much more solid 3-0 team than the Jags at 2-1. And if their prices are the same, if I can get a Jalen Hurts PSA 10 based Donruss the same price as Trevor Lawrence, I'd rather go with the Jalen Hurts. He's had more experience, more time. I also like the weapons a little bit better in Philly, although they've been really solid in Jacksonville. I'm going to bet on the Eagles to win this game, and right now we're talking about coming out here, these first 3 weeks. And now if they go 4-0, they go 5-0, these are really the guys that are going to be on all the front headlines as front runners for MVP this year. And these are the guys that we're seeing the biggest prices. So they're pit against each other, man, this weekend. So it almost makes sense. And I did this with Jalen Hurts and Kirk Cousins last week on Monday Night Football. In week 2, I bought Kirk Cousins and I bought some Jalen Hurts. And I knew one of these guys was going to come out of this game with a lot of hype. And it worked out great for my Jalen Hurts cards. And Kirk Cousins, I'm still holding. They're kind of bounced back this past week. And there's still some hope for them down the stretch as they get more chemistry. You can see these teams with the new head coaches, they've kind of struggled here a little bit. Whereas the Jags have really done a good job here through 3 games. So that's exciting, man.
I like that. I like that you're this is like the adult version of when you'd get your cards out as a kid and like pretend to play a game against one player against the other with the cards. This is like you're doing it as an adult where you're literally buying the matchup of each QB heading into the week and then doing it. I love that. So you're saying Jalen Hurts, if you're going to buy, you're saying Jalen Hurts right now over Trevor Lawrence just because you project the Eagles to finish the season a little bit better at this point than the Jags. That makes sense. And I think,
and the other thing, Paul, is that we're still, it's hard for these more common base cards and base short print cards like the colored parallels and stuff to really break out in value because there's just still so much 2021 supply circulating through eBay. And there's a lot of 2020, but not nearly as much as the 2021 product. So, in this supply and demand battle, that's why the rookie ticket autos for Trevor are going up so much because there is that scarcity, that limited supply there. Whereas his base Prism, his base Donruss, these cards are not going up nearly at the same rate just because there's still so much of that supply. All the Select, all the Optic, still all the Prism that's being ripped, being broken, circulating through eBay. So, I expect maybe a year from now, for Trevor's market then to have a similar kind of a trend if he's playing at a similar level as Jalen Hurts, because the supply would be more similar. But now when you look at 2020 product, it's nearly at the same supply level as 2021.
That's a very, very important point that you just made. And I want everybody to try to understand this, and that is a year does make a huge difference as you're rolling out these new rookie classes. And so what Andy just hit on is that there is a difference in it being 2022 and buying someone who is in the 2020 rookie class like Hurts or Herbert or Burrow versus buying someone like Lawrence who is in the 2021 rookie class, because the supply has ended for the 2020 rookie class. And so we know what that market looks like more so, that's a broad term, but we know what that market looks like more so. It's more settled. It's a little bit more mature. It's 1 year more mature. So because you have a little bit less maturity with the supply continuing to happen with the 2021 rookie class still, you've got less maturity on the Lawrence market, which basically means that you've got basically more margin for error and more volatility between his higher end and lower end cards. And I think that could be a reason why, it all makes sense what you're saying in terms of his base stuff being basically still being able to kind of buy in on that, but being super week to week on his higher end stuff like the Contenders rookie ticket autos. And you can see here, like, one more point that I'll make before we sort of shift the discussion here is that Trevor Lawrence on my screen at Market Movers in the last 30 days, so this includes August, the end of August, right before the season starts, a couple weeks before the season starts, he's down 4% across 110 cards. And I think that is because, like, you've got that, it's a combination of factors. Like, yeah, he's doubled for a lot of his higher end cards, but August is the time to sell. Even when you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's quote unquote up right now, it is on a card by card basis. That's very, very important to remember. And so we're going to shift the discussion in here because Oh My Shoes has a great question about Kenny Pickett rookies. And this kind of goes with something that Andy educated me about with 2021 select releases. So recently I added two new types of profiles to the nooffseason.com sports card investment report. We'll talk about one of them right now, and then the next one in a second. One of them is current 2022 NFL rookie profiles. And the reason I did this is credit to Andy Cason of Football Card Quest and nooffseason.com. It's because Andy enlightened me to the fact that in Select 2021, there are 2022 rookie XRC cards and autos that have them in the pro uniform. And this was something that I did not know. So, Oh My Shoes, I'm not sure if this is what you're asking about. He's asking about our take on Kenny Pickett rookies right now. He acquired a few in a trade. So let's talk about the kinds of Kenny Pickett rookies that I'm interested in. And then let's talk about, we'll let Andy add to this. But I think it's interesting that there's some Pickett hype building around him potentially getting the starting role, even though Mike Tomlin seems very steadfast with staying with Mitchell Trubisky as long as he can. So I've got Kenny Pickett as a sell right now, in particular this card, the 2021-22 Panini Select XRC Auto out of 99. The reason why I've got it as a sell is kind of the same concept that we just talked about with football cards in general. You've got so much hype leading up to the season that you really sell the hype. Well, just like a baseball prospect that hasn't been called up to the majors yet, Kendall and I would say sell that on the hype too, because you don't know if he's going to go 0 for his first 10 and then all the hype dies down and his prices drop, or if he's going to hit a home run in his first at bat and the prices are going to spike. So I think it's a little bit risky. Even if Kenny Pickett does get the starting job, we don't know how he's going to do. And so I would say sell Kenny Pickett because there's so much hype on him right now. I would not be buying in unless I could basically flip it right away. But Andy, what's your take to Oh My Shoes' question? Sorry for giving my answer first, but what's your take on Kenny Pickett rookie cards right now?
Yeah, man, that card you're looking at right there, I'm looking at the latest transaction of about $1,500 to $2,000, man. So, yeah, you have that element of it. Like, we're left to our imagination. We saw that little sample size of him in the preseason. That was exciting. It was good. It was promising, man. Unlocking potential of George Pickens and Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth and stuff. And Trubisky has played really bad through the first few weeks, and it's probably only a matter of time. I can't imagine them, going through the entire season not knowing what they have in Kenny Pickett and just continuing to endure this Mitchell Trubisky, pain. It's just painful to watch him play, and like you can see Deontay Johnson and Pickens throwing their hands up and just getting frustrated out there. Pickens has got to do some crazy one-handed catch to catch the ball from Trubisky. And and I can hear the fans booing him towards the end of the game. I mean, like just booing Trubisky. So it's only a matter of time, I think, before they do give Pickens a start. And I love, like, one of my bread and butter investment targets for any year is the rookies, because there's so much volatility. You have this limited supply, and it's very volatile on a week-to-week basis, just based on the auctions, the photographs, the type of listing it is, the whole 9 yards. So, like, I can see his regular silver XRC fluctuating anywhere between $300 to $550. Like, I literally look at transactions that ended the same day, one for $350, one for $430. And then you look a couple days later and you see one ending for $426. And you go back a few days and you're like, well, there's one that ended for around $300. So it's like, what gives? And I think this just presents an opportunity for you to stalk these, understanding XRCs. Yeah, this is the premium. It's not going to be for every player, but the first round guys, some of the second round guys, they get the XRCs. This is the card for the rookies right now. Outside of that, you have the pen pals, you have the passports, you have the legacy silver autos, some of the mosaic draft pick autos, even the leaf autos that are rare. If you can stalk these in auction and get them for cheap, and take some great photos and turn around and have those listed ready to go to sell them whenever he does get a starting chance, then I mean, that's a great flip, man. You can make a bunch of money, especially like rookies that are actively playing. Like Breece Hall is one of my favorite buy lows right now because he's so good that it's just a matter of time before he has one of these monster breakout games, man. Just like Garrett Wilson had last week with Joe Flacco, or in week 2. And it's just a matter of time. These guys have a monster game, and that's all it takes for a rookie to get super hyped up. One game, one big performance, and people will flock to eBay and just not even look at comps because it's hard to find comps. Like we just talked about for 2021, you can't look at charts for 2022. There's very few charts, if any, for 2022 to help you understand where you're buying in at. You know, that's why we have so much like safety and security saying Lamar is a buy. We've been screaming it for the past few weeks, and that's been one of our biggest wins. And 2022, you just don't have that. So you have to go with, you know, where's this guy selling at compared to other players in the draft class? Okay. George Pickens is XRC is going for 150, but Treylon Burks is only going for 40. That's got to change. You know, there's only a matter of time before Burks gets that big game, or, you know, Breece Hall compared to Garrett Wilson. And, you know, you can just do this amongst the draft class and you go look at what the Malik Willis XRC, if he's got one. I'm not even sure if Malik Willis or Desmond Ridder has an XRC, to be honest with you, because that would be a great kind of barometer, because there's a good chance that we could see both of those guys start this year. More likely we get Malik Willis, and we know he's got a potential ceiling. Like I'm looking at Desmond Ridder does have one that's currently fluctuating between $100 and $200. Like literally, auction ended September 25th for $95. I buy it now, ended September 29th for $200. It's just like, I mean, instant flip potential there, and the guy's not even starting, but because of the limited supply, just the immediate fluctuations in those guys' prices, it makes for such an interesting opportunity to play off of.
Yeah, and I think just to reiterate, like, this is a great question, Oh My Shoes, and I'm going to add a little bit to it. And do not worry, your questions are not choppy at all. He's commenting, sorry if my questions are choppy and don't make sense. I'm usually at work listening. We love that you're at work listening. So keep multitasking, my man. No, I would say, like, people who make money on this type of quick flip with these rookies as the new releases are coming out. So Andy listed Don Russ Pen Pals as an auto insert from Don Russ. The XRC is in select. If you're making money on, and then there's like gold standard and black and certified, are you typically like the earlier releases that come out during the beginning part of the NFL season for the new rookie class. So as you see those hitting the market, there is a way to make money on them, but the way to make money on them is to be super fast, like to get the card and then immediately list it and sell it at the right time before the big breakout week. Or in the case of like a Pickett or even a Ridder, I think you can sell on the hype of them potentially becoming the starter. We don't know about Willis. That's another name that we need to understand. If Tannehill's job is going to be in jeopardy this year. I'm not sure that that Willis is knocking on the door quite like Pickett and Ridder are for Trubisky and Mariota, but you know, we've seen weirder things happen in the NFL, so I think Willis has to be on our radar as well. I like that you put Treylon Burks out there, because I did add Drake London to the site. Let's see, I added Drake London, Pickett. I also added Jahan Dotson, but I failed to add up next that are not there yet are Willis, Burks, Wilson, and Hall for sure. So love that question. And I think Kendall McKee is jumping in here as a Facebook user. Sup, boys? Paul this is like a Texas accent coming in. Y'all talked about the young guys yet? Just sent you a WhatsApp with some interesting stats for Sanders. So let's see. Okay, this Kendall, we love you and thank you so much. You made the segue for me because I wanted to go directly into this. So this is the other thing I wanted to talk about today. We've got a good 20 minutes or so to do it. So we got to get creative. We got to look at opportunities. And what I've been cooking up for a long time, and I just published an article on nooffseason.com as well as full profiles for the premium subscribers to check out at nooffseason.com, are 6 college quarterbacks, essentially. Sorry, 7. There's 7 college quarterbacks that I've essentially ranked, and I decided to rank them among the current professionals because to me, football cards are football cards. We got to be talking about all the different types of opportunities in football card investing. And while 99.99% of it is pro players, we have had some releases recently over the last year or so of some investable cards for college quarterbacks. And so I wanted to talk about the 7 that I have on the website right now and some of their cards. And Kendall's talking about Shedeur Sanders when he said Sanders in the comment. That's Deion's son who plays for Jackson State. We haven't had a first round pick from a SWAC school since Steve McNair in 1995, but we have had Tavares Jackson, the most recent SWAC pro QB, not a first round pick, obviously. But here's my overall statement without digging into each one of these guys individually. Will Levis from Kentucky, CJ Stroud from Ohio State, Bryce Young from Alabama, and Tyler Van Dyke from Miami. They all have Bowman U Chrome first prospect autos. And so for those of you that are familiar with baseball prospecting, and I think my shoes, actually, this is all great timing. I think he's talking about prospecting. What do you guys think of prospecting, right? So let's answer My Shoes' other question with this discussion. For those of you familiar with baseball prospecting, the Bowman Chrome first autos and the parallels along with that, the numbered parallels, are the cards to own for the lifetime of that player. And so I'm not saying that Bowman U Chrome first autos are going to be the cards to own for the lifetime of that player. But what I am saying is I see potentially a much less riskier scenario with these college quarterbacks coming out than I do with some pro guys, because if you buy like a Will Levis right now, for example, he's a lot less expensive and you can forecast what his markers are. So how well will UK do, and will they win a bowl game, and will Levis be in the conversation? Like, will he be in early December up on the stage for the Heisman Trophy? Who knows? But what we do know is he will get drafted, and there's a good chance he will get drafted in the first round. And so the path to profiting for a guy like Will Levis for me, and the rest of these other guys, and by the way, the 7th one is Anthony Richardson. And the reason I haven't mentioned Caleb Williams, Shedeur Sanders, and Anthony Richardson yet is because they're not in the Bowman set, the 2021 Bowman set, but they do have other investable cards. The path to profiting for all 7 of these guys is the NFL draft and selling right before the NFL draft during that hype cycle of the combine, the workouts, all the mentions, all of that. Andy, how am I doing here? Am I on the right track? You got to bring me back down to earth here. What do you think?
No, I think it's a very interesting opportunity because you have that limited supply, especially if you're targeting autograph cards. Like, that's going to be first and foremost what people go for, especially because a lot of these are college uniforms. You know, a lot of them are unlicensed, like even the Bowman U's not licensed. So it's using the player's name, image, and likeness. It doesn't have a team logo, team trademarks, that kind of stuff, but it has the player's name, it's got their picture, and if it's got their autograph, now all of a sudden we've got something here that's very desirable, especially those Bowman U Chrome refractor finishes as well. So now we've got something very desirable. And because you're buying in such a far in advance from where they're being drafted, time-wise, then you're able to really stalk the auctions and find auctions ending throughout the week, during the week, that are just going to be way undervalued what you could turn around and sell them for, and that buy it now when they do go to get drafted and they're doing their workouts for the combine. Like, you could have done this last year with guys like Matt Corral on the Panthers, who's now injured, but he had like a very interesting interview process. He was getting a lot of spotlight throughout the draft process this past year. And he was one of those guys in the conversation with Malik Willis and Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. And all these guys were being talked about as potential, just because the 2021 draft class was so much weaker than all these other draft classes, surrounding it for quarterbacks, that they had potential to go in the first round. And there was those conversations happening. And so, yeah, it requires a lot of patience, Paul, because you're not able to identify any potential events or markers that could see these cards spike in the next week or two, or next month. But if you've got this patience and you've got this disposable bankroll for cards, and you want to have something to stash that has potential, like you're saying, to potentially make a 5-10x return, go ahead and get those now, because as we get closer to the draft next year, that's when those cards are going to spike. And we know that the release from Panini is not going to happen until after the draft. Like,
that's exactly right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's another huge factor in this. It took me a long time to put college QBs into this list. And that was another reason, is because of what you just said. I finally put them in this list because I was like, you know what? Not only is the Bowman U first Chrome auto going to be relevant around NFL draft, but the first release that they're going to be in a pro uniform is going to be several months after the NFL draft. And so there's going to be the NFL training camp hype cycle that we get to go through entirely to potentially sell these guys as well, if for some reason they don't materialize the way that the investor thought they would through the draft cycle. They could potentially hold even longer to see if there is more of an actual on-field performance marker or on practice field hype. You and Carter talk all the time in the offseason about like the tweets that happen coming out of the training camp practices and how that can spike the hype and the value and the fantasy football drafts and things like that. And so it just got me thinking, like, what's riskier, buying 3 Trevor Lawrence PSA 10 rated rookie Donruss right now, or 1 Will Levis out of orange auto out of 25 out of Bowman U, where Lawrence could get injured next week or in practice, and Levis could too, but Levis has a longer runway leading up to where you would want to sell him anyway. So even if he does get injured or have a bad performance, there's way more time, way more opportunity for him to build himself back up before you would have sold anyway if you're buying right now. So that was kind of my thought.
And you've got the scarcity. And you've got the scarcity there in the Will Levis, right, whereas you don't have the scarcity in the Trevor Lawrence.
Absolutely. That's another great point. So with just real quick, with Sanders, he's got Onyx autos. You and Kendall and I talked about this on an earlier episode of the Sports Card Strategy Show. So he's got these Onyx autos that are signed in, they're on card, and they're signed in serial numbered with the colored ink. I would assume the serial number is also by him on the back of the card. The blue ink is out of 400, and it'll say like the number out of 400. Green ink is out of 50. Red ink is out of 25. And then there's black ink out of 5. And the black ink out of 5 is $100. And so there's the scarcity of this. And so Kendall just WhatsApped me a stat that I guess this is the Heisman watch through this current week. Shedeur Sanders has more passing yards He only has 1 interception, has completed. So let's just do to Bryce Young. 300 more passing yards than Bryce Young, 1 more passing touchdown, 1 less interception, completed 7% more of his passes. 100 more passing yards than CJ Stroud, 2 less touchdowns, same amount of interceptions, completed 5% more of his passes. So I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's SWAC competition versus SEC and Big Ten competition, but the kid can play, and he's someone to keep an eye on. And it's all about the hype anyway, and no one hypes things up more than Coach Prime. And the number 1 overall recruit in the nation last year went there, right? Decommitted from Florida State. He's a wide receiver. Am I getting that right? So it's legit football here in the SWAC, I think.
Yeah, man. Deion Sanders has got that pull. He's got the fat wallet. He's also the prime time, and they got the whole reality show and everything. So they're getting a ton of relevancy, just press on mainstream media because of the Sanders name and brand and everything and what they're doing in the school. And the kid definitely has athletic ability. He's got a pretty good scouting grade. You could see it in his numbers. Man, and he's draft eligible in 2024. So we're looking at a full 2 years, before he gets into the NFL. So yeah, I mean, I think that you have a growing market even for cards like this from Onyx because they're so early. And once again, it's got the autograph, which I think is a key component. Like I don't see people like going out trying to buy Sage or these Onyx cards that just aren't autographed that have no logos or anything on them, or rookie card shields or anything like that of these players. But if there's a $50 autograph, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that's a sweet spot. I want to get that. I want to get me a Shedeur Sanders autograph from his early career. I think that's really cool. I think that if that's really cool from a collection standpoint, then it's good from an investment standpoint, and it's going to hold weight for the next couple years.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm just going to say it right here. Like, I think I'm going to wait until the hype of the current college season dies down a little bit. And I may try to go out and buy all 5 of the out of 5 Shedeur Sanders Onyx on-card black autos, and then just get them graded at PSA if they're not already, and then just hold them until the 2024 draft and just see. I mean, if this guy's a first-round pick, or, if he somehow wins a Heisman Trophy or is a first-round pick or whatever, those cards could be worth something. So thank you, Chad Dyer. Chad Dyer says, you guys rock. This is the podcast I've been looking for. Took your advice on Josh Palmer. Love that. Chad, here's the thing. This just made my day. Pretty sure it made Andy's. And the thing that we strive for is we do not want to be Captain Obvious. Like, we know that you all know a lot about sports card collecting and investing. And there are a lot of other podcasts out there that are really, really good and well-intended, but a lot of them just kind of say the same things over and over again, or just regurgitate like what's on Instagram about card news. And like, that's just not what we do. And so thank you so much for kind of recognizing that. We really appreciate it. And we definitely want to keep improving, and let us know if you guys have any questions or comments. So real quick, just to kind of round out this conversation, like Caleb Williams is another guy. I think he wants to be the number 1 overall pick in 2024. So I don't know if that means that he's not draft eligible in 2023, or just that he's going to stay until, for another year. I'm not sure, but he also is not in. I say he's not in Bowman U. He might be. And that's the other thing to actually remember with Sanders too, is that, and Anthony Richardson's in the same boat. I haven't been able to find any of their Bowman University cards listed. That doesn't mean that they're not in 2021 Bowman. They might be. I didn't double and triple check the checklist. I don't think they are. I haven't seen any transactions or even listings, pictures of their cards in the sets. But just beware that they could be in 2022 Bowman. So I could be talking about Shedeur Sanders, Onyx autos being the cards to invest in. But then if he's in 2022 Bowman U, and all of a sudden Topps and Fanatics have these licenses of the colleges also, Now all of a sudden you're talking about Shedeur Sanders or Caleb Williams, first Bowman Chrome auto. That's the card to own, basically. So I'm not sure, Andy, if you have anything to add on Caleb Williams or Anthony Richardson, but these are two other guys to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I could see Caleb Williams. He's got a lot of different Leaf metal draft, which Leaf makes a good product. I mean, especially these metal drafts. These cards are popular, and they've got a lot of serial numbers, a lot of autographs. They've got a thick card stock with a chrome finish, and they look great, which means that they're collectible, which means that they're investable. And yeah, I mean, it's another one of those situations where if you've got the patience and you're following the college football, then that adds, because the market is just not nearly as big there for college football, kind of flipping that, like, performance based flipping on a week to week basis. But these guys are clearly going to ascend and eventually have a massive spike when they do get drafted and stuff. So if you have that patience and the availability to get in on some of these cards now, I mean, ultimately, yeah, maybe the Bowman 2022 could kind of supersede, some of these Onyx cards, but the scarcity, you still got it, and you still got the autograph, which at the end of the day is ultimately what a lot of people are looking for. And you've got that it's a recognized manufacturer. Onyx is a recognized manufacturer. It's not like they just sprouted up overnight. Like, this is something they've been doing for a while. And the same thing with Leaf. And so they've got a good reputation, and and then you go and send that in to get it graded. Now you've double authenticated yourself, kind of backed yourself up there. Hey man, there's a lot of potential there.
I think you're right. I think that I would grade the Onyx cards for Shedeur Sanders for sure. I think I might partake in that market. I think it's a little hyped right now because it's the beginning of the college football season. He's on, not national TV, but if you're streaming on ESPN Player, for example, like, you can see his games for Jackson State. So there's a little bit more hype. All right, Andy, I'm going to throw you a quick wounded duck, and I hope, or some pass that gets deflected off a defender's helmet, and you're going to try to run and catch it real quick. Let's flip the script. Vintage football. So you define that however you want. That could be any retired player, or it could be like what the collectors would actually consider vintage. Are there any opportunities that you're seeing there where it's like, hey, this is a low-hanging fruit, like, card that I would buy, that's gonna, like, that I would hold for 5 to 10 years and see it being appreciate in value? Do you I have a take on this, but I really kind of want to get your hot take on kind of the vintage opportunities for football.
Yeah, so when I look at vintage opportunities, or I think about vintage opportunities, for me, it's anybody that's retired. So even Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, to me, is vintage. I know they're not true vintage. Their rookie cards aren't like pre-1986, or 1988, when they really started to ramp up production throughout the 80s and 90s. But they're no longer playing. They don't have these performance-based events that could really drive a serious demand spike in their cards. They just kind of ebb and flow with the overall hobby, and maybe with some of their TV relevancy, like the Manning cast, the Manning brothers covering Monday Night Football still, which is a great, little facet of Monday Night Football that I love to watch. And so, yeah, I think that their cards are these guys. Like, if you go back to when vintage is truly vintage, like 1986 prior, it's all about grade chasing at that point, because you do have a higher chance of getting cards that are not authentic. I mean, we see a ton of reprints out in the market. You don't want reprints. That's not a good thing. I mean, if you're just buying it for your kid, okay, maybe, but just be aware that when you're going vintage, it's all about grade chasing, and PSA 4s, 5s, SGC 6s, and 7s become very viable, because to get a PSA 10 on something that old is extremely difficult, and those cards are very rare. And right now is an opportunity, because you can go, and the other great thing about vintage is we've got great charts. Like, you can go and pull charts for years on what vintage cards have done. And so you can easily make sure that you're not overpaying for a specific card, whether it be a Walter Payton or a Jim Brown, or Jerry Rice or Steve Young, rookie, whatever you're looking at, Dan Marino, Joe Montana. So, I mean, and right now there is a lot of focus on the active current players, so that does leave a little bit less competition in the vintage market. Typically, from what I've seen, vintage does dip at the beginning of the season, like where we're in right now, and then it kind of picks up towards the Super Bowl. I kind of see the football cards as a whole appreciate during that time period. And so, I think there's one of those things where it's like having Apple or Google stock versus this startup company stock over here, whether it's, Tesla or whatever, a new company that's a startup that's got a lot of promise like Justin Herbert, but yet they don't have this Hall of Fame locked in, in stone, plus this locked in stone, pretty much a population count of their rookie cards as well, to kind of really give you a good idea of if you're overpaying or not. So it's good. I think it's good to diversify. I don't diversify enough, but I do have some vintage. Like I've got a PSA 4 Walter Payton that I paid like $350 for. And so it's one of the cards that I feel totally fine just holding to my collection for as long as I want, because I feel that as long as there's a hobby, vintage cards will have value. Whereas, the hobby in 2027 or by 2030 could be a fraction of the size it is now. And Justin Herbert's base Donruss, even PSA 10, is going to be worth $25. There's a potential for that. Whereas the Walter Payton, PSA 10, it's still going to be worth a lot of money.
Yeah. That's a good overall breakdown. I think there's a lot to unpack with vintage, especially after talking about ultra modern. And I think I would really love to hear from the audience on, let us know if you're interested in vintage football cards as Andy defined them. So really any retired player. I am seeing and communicating with a demographic of sports card investor pretty consistently that looks at sports card investing more like the stock market, or like a mutual fund is probably like a better analogy. Whereas like in the stock market, you can have a lot of volatility with penny stocks and things like that. And I think that describes the ultra modern football market really well. But I start to wonder conceptually, what's actually more risky? Is it more risky to actually go ultra modern? I think it's perceived by a certain demographic of sports card investor that ultra modern is super risky and that vintage is not risky. But I'm starting to actually challenge that point a little bit, because you could buy a Barry Sanders PSA 8 score rookie now, and that could be worth 40% of what it's worth now in 10 years because you decided you want to hold it for 10 years. Whereas you could listen to us right now and we could tell you buy, who's a good example? Buy Justin Jefferson right now and then sell him 2 weeks from now and you'll make $50. And would you rather, I mean, it's just, the reason I say that is because if you make smart decisions, buy the right cards at the right time and sell them at the right time, ultra modern, you can print money, and it's not going to be at scale. It's going to be a grind, right? And I think that's what turns off the demographic of sports card investor that wants it to be the mutual fund. But I'm kind of cautioning that demographic of sports card investor that might not be as safe as you think it could be. So I want to hear from the audience on that. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about and need me to clarify, I definitely will on future shows and in one-on-one communications or in comments with everyone. So I'm intrigued to hear what you guys think. And Andy, do you have anything else you want to add at all before we sign off on Football Card Strategy Show episode 7?
No, that makes perfect sense, Paul, because if you think about it, like 1989, Barry Sanders is not true vintage, right? It's not, he is retired, but yet that card still has a very healthy population. Like, it has several thousand graded cards, and it's not true vintage. Like, that's when the major manufacturers started really cranking up production rates in the late 80s, early 90s. So there's a lot of those cards out there, and it was definitely a product of the modern sports card boom. Like, that was one of the cards that definitely went up a lot, as well as the Bo Jackson and the Peyton Manning rookie cards. That ton of Peyton Manning rookie cards out there being from 98. So it's one of those cards where you do have to take into consideration how much has this card gone up from the modern sports card boom, and you do not have performance related events to potentially drive a demand spike for that card. So I agree with you. And that's really why I stick with current active players. And that's why age and draft capital are such big factors in my hype index score, because, the younger they are, just the more excited people will get about them, and the more chances you have to then generate demand for your card and sell it for a profit, like you're talking about. So there is definitely a big challenge there around vintage in that sense.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research on this, and while I think there's a lot of smart people out there going, "Oh, well, this is like the S&P 500, or this is like the mutual funds, or this is like that," it's actually unlike any other market. It really is, and so that's why Andy and I spend basically all of our time on the ultra modern stuff, and even looking at like the college quarterbacks that we just talked about. We're trying to find the arbitrage there, and not necessarily be like, I think if you want to hold a Walter Payton rookie card out of joy of having it for several years, that's amazing. And in what other world could you do that and then basically sell it for almost the same price that you bought it for? Not many other worlds. Maybe art, I don't know. But so I love sports cards for that. And I don't mean to step on anyone's toes that is into those types of cards. But I do think in terms of it being like a real investment, I don't know that it's as much that those types of cards are as much of a real investment as actually the ultra modern stuff. So we'll continue this discussion. Oh My Shoes has some good thoughts on this. We're gonna run out of time. So everybody, thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a great day. I'm Paul Hickey with nooffseason.com. Check out nooffseason.com. Use the promo code nooffseason to save 20% on our premium product. If you want a free year of our premium product, email me at paul@nooffseason.com. I'll tell you how to do that. And check out patreon.com/footballcards. That's where Andy's got all of his premium stuff, and it's going to help you make some money and have some fun in the process. So thanks so much, Andy, and everyone watching and listening. Have a great day. And as Kendall would say, cue the rock music.